What is up, everybody? Welcome to Curated. I am so excited, so happy, so grateful that you decided to join in today. And fam, here's the deal, okay? Thursday night, it's almost midnight. 500,000 people are on YouTube watching Drake do a live stream. Nobody knows what the fuck is coming. Then at the very end, my boy pulls out 3 hard drives. 3. And then the screen says, I made this so that I could make this. And at midnight, 3 albums drop simultaneously. Also, don't mind my fucking cat and dog. This is their house, it's not mine. 3 albums, Iceman, Habibti, Maid of Honor. The CN Tower in Toronto gets frozen in blue ice projection. Zane Bolt is posting, Guy Fieri is posting, the Houston, Texas posting, the White House posts iced out. Rick Ross is waking up, calling what Drake has created trash. And I'm sitting here just thinking, Drake has that power, you know? Drake can make a random Thursday night feel like the Super Bowl. So today we're going to go a little bit of a deep dive. The stats, the stunts, the scores to settle, the real question that probably nobody wants to answer out loud. Is Drake back? Or is he really just really being loud? You know? Before we get into the chaos, though, I'm gonna throw some stats at y'all because we have to truly sit with the numbers. I don't know if we've all lost track of who the fuck Drake is and how grand the guy is, and whether you're a fan of Drake or not, we can't deny this. Drake has 120 billion streams on Spotify. Taylor Swift, who the world is calling the biggest artist alive, she has 110 billion streams on Spotify. Drake has 10 billion more than Taylor Swift. The next closest rapper is Bad Bunny at just over 100 billion. And Kendrick Lamar, the man who ended Drake, has 35 billion. Drake has nearly 4 times Kendrick's streams. And again, y'all, I'm playing as a bipartisan man here. Drake versus Kendrick. Like we're not. I'm saying to back off. Okay, I'm not about to get myself into that drama. Because I once said something about Taylor Swift and the Swifties got me. The Swifties got me. But all I'm stating is that, yes, Drake is one of the biggest stars out there in the world. He has 321 charting hits in the Billboard Hot 100. Taylor Swift is second at 212. He has 76 top 10 hits, more than the fucking Beatles. He is considered the best-selling digital artist in US history with 244 million certified units. He has sold 170 million equivalent albums worldwide, more than Bruce Springsteen, more than Whitney Houston, and more than Billy Joel. And here's the number that complicates all of that, okay? Drake has had 55 Grammy nominations and only 5 wins. Kendrick has had 50 nominations and 17 wins. So, and this is the point that I'm getting at. Commercially, Drake is in conversation with almost nobody else in history. Critically and culturally, he has been getting lapped for a decade. And that gap between the charts and the credibility is the entire story of why Iceman exists. Because y'all, after the Kendrick beef that exploded back in 2024, after Not Like Us won 5 Grammys and got performed in front of 130 million people at the Super Bowl, Drake backed the fuck off. He went quiet. No album, no mixtape, nothing. For the first time since 2012, he didn't release a single project. And by the time Iceman dropped this Friday, it had been 928 days since his last solo album. The longest gap ever. The most prolific rapper had nothing until Thursday night. And so let's talk a little bit about the rollout, because the rollout was practically the entire event, because we can spend some time talking about the album and that might be a different story. This truly wasn't just like a rollout, it was a full-on production, because again, what Drake is doing here and what he did months before, weeks before going into these album releases might honestly be a lot more interesting than the albums themselves. And I mean that as a compliment, because as a marketer, shit like that is the stuff that I geek the fuck off of, because I just love shit like when Taylor Swift is doing all these little things, to hint at her fans. I love these like Easter eggs and these stunts that are pretty much produced and created leading up to an album, and how creative they can get. Like, I feed off that shit. I love that. He literally said in an interview with Complex, the game is extremely calm seas right now. Nobody is rocking any boat, so a live stream rollout sounded like the perfect mix of risk and reward. What followed was anything but calm. So let's talk about the live stream. It actually started almost a year before that album dropped. July 4th, 2025, Drake is dropping Iceman episode 1 on YouTube. It's 58 minutes. There's no album. It's just vibes, unreleased music, and Drake in like this warehouse full of guns driving through Toronto with Iceman spray painted on the side of the van. Episode 2 is dropping 2 weeks after that from Manchester, England. And here's the detail that I think started to make people a little more obsessive about this whole thing. In episode 2, Drake is being chased through Manchester by Pinocchio. A literal Pinocchio character is chasing him. A BBC journalist wrote that it represents the lie surrounding Drake after the Kendrick conflict. And then episode 3 comes out, which was Doghouse with Yeet and Julia Fox. Each episode dropped a single and added a new piece to this like evolving story that culminated into this release last Thursday. It wasn't just like this album campaign. The way that he formulated this whole idea was to make it this kind of like serialized TV show. Then in March, Drake is inducting Nelly Furtado into the Juno Hall of Fame. He gives a speech, charming guy. He's gracious. And at the very end, almost as an aside, he kind of just says, quote, Iceman coming soon. At obviously his hometown, a little Canadian music award show. And so obviously, there's frenzy that's going to happen. Then we move into last month, April 12th. The Toronto Raptors, this is the last home game of the season. Drake doesn't even show up, but his courtside seats, they're completely encasted in this like faux ice, frozen over. Nobody at the arena knows what it means. TikTok, of course, doing what it has to do, figures that shit out in like less than 4 minutes. And the Raptors end up posting Drake froze the city. And that type of like quote unquote free guerrilla type marketing is that type of shit that most brands spend like millions of dollars trying to buy. And this is what I mean. This is the stuff that I'm like, bro, okay, I see it. Then April 17th comes around, 3 in the morning. There are these like reports that start flooding Twitter that there's an explosion in Toronto. People are alarmed, but it ends up being Drake. He's filming a music video near Downsview Park, and it ends up being this permitted pyrotechnic shot. The local city councilor had to like issue a public statement about it. Downsview Park management had to apologize to like the neighbor. Drake set off an explosion in Toronto at 3 a.m. And although the way that this turned out, probably wasn't what was intended, the news cycle couldn't honestly even be mad about it. And then the big one comes around, April 20th. Drake posts this like cryptic, it's in to his Instagram, then drops Google Map coordinates to a parking lot on 81st Bond Street in downtown Toronto. Right across from the Eaton Center, steps from the university, workers had spent 30 hours building something there overnight using a forklift, tier by tier, 1 million pounds of ice. A 25-foot structure that allegedly cost $1.2 million is constructed. Inside it is the album release date. And then of course, the internet found out within hours, and then chaos started. People are showing up with pickaxes, hammers. One streamer, Kishka, who people might know from Kick, goes on top of the structure with his crew and lights a fire on it. Somebody is pulling a fucking blowtorch. The crowd started setting actual flames on top of this block of ice. This is a different conversation that I feel like we all just need to have about people doing too much, because the same could be said. And again, I don't want the Swifties to come out and come after me, but the fandoms can get a little crazy sometimes. We gotta You gotta chill with it. I get that. I get that there was a purpose to it, and I get that this is all partly intended. I mean, everybody doing this is driving more and more videos and news anchors and reports and all of that across social media. It did what it's supposed to do, but I mean, it's kind of crazy. The Toronto Fire Department has to come and melt the sculpture themselves for public safety. And Mayor Olivia Chow has to issue an actual official statement being like, hey, I get it. Y'all are excited. Drake is a big boost to our city, but, we got to chill. And then an unsolicited mathematician, physics professor from the University of Toronto, puts out this like paper, a physics paper on how much energy it would essentially take to melt the sculpture. But at the end of the day, the release date does get found. Kishka eventually receives it in like a hidden bag, frozen inside, sent to Drake's mansion called the Embassy, opens it on camera, and got paid in Canadian cash on the spot. May 15th is confirmed as the release date. We get to May 14th, the night before the release. Drake wipes out his entire Instagram, everything completely gone, replaces it with this countdown. Episode 4 of the live stream begins, and fireworks go off over Toronto Harbor live on camera. The CN Tower is lit blue and frozen in ice projections. Drake is filming inside Toronto City Hall, inside the mayor's office, in the council chamber. He's wearing Toronto's like official ceremonial chain of office. DJ Academics is flown to Toronto personally by Drake, and he's warned that he might see some things that could compromise him as a fan. And at the very end of the live stream, again, those 3 hard drives get pulled out, 3 albums, midnight, boom. This rollout, y'all, if we're looking at the complete timeline of it all, is stretching like nearly 300 days. Explosions in Toronto, ice sculptures, streamers doing some fucking scavenger hunts, 4 cinematic episodes, a little hint at the Juno Awards, frozen NBA seats, 1 million pounds of ice, like a physics paper, the fire department, the mayor of Toronto, and the music's not even out yet. We're just prompting this cultural installation, which is the stuff that I love. And so, what is actually in the album? Now let's shift gears from everything that happened in nearly 300 days to promote this album to those 40 some songs coming out on May 15th. There's a true gap, I think, between like the official reaction that people have and what the real reaction is. It's pretty significant. So here's how they break down essentially, right? You have Iceman, which is a rap record, the statement piece, Then you have Habibti, which is Arabic for my darling, and it's an R&B album, the romantic, portion of this all. And then you have Maid of Honor, which is an experimental one, more dance music, EDM, kind of Jersey club vibes. And all these 3 albums are dropping at the same exact second. Now, before we even get into the music, there's a lot of conversations that have been happening over the weekend on TikTok right now, especially about, what people think of this and the critique. A creator that I follow by the name of Aaron Hampshire has been making this point, amongst others who feel the same way, which is that the 3 album drop feels less like this artistic ambition that Drake had to put 3 distinct sounds out there, but more of a streaming numbers play. And you know what? Let's think about it. You have 3 albums. That means nearly 3 times, the chart positions, 3 times the playlist opportunities, 3 times of like first week data to land the Billboard Hot 100s. One reviewer, and I'm going to paraphrase here, said, this is a ploy to regather relevance through abundance rather than substance. And honestly, y'all, the manufactured hype machine around it, it's hard to ignore. DJ Academics, who Drake is personally flying over to Toronto, is playing radio host and running defense for the albums before a single person outside of Drake's circle had even heard of the albums. Shane Gillis appears in the visuals. The mayor of Toronto is posting stuff. The White House posted. The Houston, Texas is posting. Every major figure that is in Drake's orbit is activated simultaneously. They're all like, this shit is fire. And so the question really becomes, when does the rollout, and did this rollout become a controlled narrative? When does the hype become this machine that is running regardless of what the product actually gives? And so now that the dust is settling, people have actually listened to all 43 songs. The general consensus is mixed. It's leaning mid. And one critic has put it bluntly, there are some stellar instrumentals, but they're undercut by a performer who is too busy ruminating on the past to have anything new or interesting to say. Multiple reviewers are noting that Iceman is 18 tracks long, which is over an hour, arguing that honestly, if you were to tighten up that album, it should probably be 10. Album of the year users are being divided. Some are calling it, one of his best in the last decade. Others are saying that it's the bad type of boring. And then the Kendrick shots specifically, which are, supposed to be the centerpiece of what Drake has been talking about for a long time, in my opinion. Okay. A lot of fans are saying that, they land more like these vague subtweets than, actual bars. One fan on X said it best. They said he has all the answers to the test, but nobody asked him the questions. Here's what's interesting. The ranking of these three albums in social media has settled into a pretty clear consensus, which is Iceman is widely considered the best of the three, that Habibti is second best. And, actually, as I'm saying that, there's a battle between, I would say, Iceman and Maid of Honor. Some people do fuck with the experimental Drake. Some people think that Maid of Honor has some bangers out there that are going to be summer hits, which I can agree with. But people are saying, the albums are more boring than bold. They're saying that the rapping in Iceman is watered down and cheesy, that Drake is staying too controlled to fully commit to chaos and experimental music, which, he's trying in Maid of Honor. But you know what? Like, I've listened to some songs sporadically across all three of the albums. And he has a song called Make Them Cry, where he reveals that his father, Dennis, has cancer. And there are other moments, I'd say, that feel the same way, where it feels a little bit of the more vulnerable Drake that isn't always talking shit about Kendrick. Some of it feels like, it is Drake trying to lock into the legacy of the artist that he is versus the charts and the earworms that he's trying to create for TikTok. But others feel like that too. And so whether that bet of mixing both, then again, have people saying maybe not committing to one, we'll see how that plays off. If I'm giving you all my honest review about this, I agree with what a lot of people are saying and the commercialization of what a lot of Drake's music has felt like in the last couple of years. And 3 albums in one day. Again, like, I have to listen to all 3 albums to truly discern for myself whether I feel like it was an artistic direction and somebody truly wanting to experiment across 3 different genres, or somebody who really had a lot to say, or did he have a lot to say, or is it truly a play for the charts, for the plays, for the streams? So is he back? There are 2 camps where people are falling into. One of them which says nobody else on earth and in the music industry right now is doing what he's doing. He's dropping 3 albums in one night. He's shutting down the city for 3 months. He's creating all this. Like, nobody has the type of influence that Drake has. And then there's a second bucket of people who are saying, hey, I feel what Rick Ross is feeling too. It's 3 mid projects that are saying that he's washed, that it doesn't matter how many albums you drop, doesn't matter all this buzz that you're creating, the cultural relevance that he has kind of passed. And people are clocking him on the fact that he's, after 2 years he's still referencing the beef that he has with Kendrick, still rewriting the narrative. Is it power, or is it just being a little bit obsessed? I think to close this out, Drake is one of the greatest commercial rappers in history. Like, that is on paper. The numbers don't lie. And some of what I've heard so far does tell me that Iceman feels like an album that was maybe made for himself, and there are elements of it that I feel like, are written truly from an artist's perspective on his life and what he's been going through. But there are other elements that, again, make it seem like it is chasing a sound, it is chasing a trend, it is falling into a narrative that has been told over and over again. And so I personally, I'm standing here telling y'all know that, like, I have to give these 3 albums like a full listen from top to bottom, and then come back. Ask me in a couple of days, because 43 songs gonna take me a minute. Is this interesting? Has it created noise? Yes. And in my opinion, to wrap this all out, I'd say when everything is designed to be quick, shit that you're probably gonna forget about in 2 or 3 days, I do wonder if the level of interest that we've taken in what's happening with Drake right now on these 3 albums is creating something that might be a valuable add to the music industry right now. Again, I'm not coming with it saying that these albums were great, because I have to listen to them and I'm divided, but we're talking about them. So what does that say? So, fam, I want to know what y'all think. Like, I ask this in every podcast episode, but generally, whenever I talk about albums, music, people, and we're talking culturally about something that requires an opinion, I want to know what y'all are thinking. Like, it truly seems like the world is divided right now, and they're the diehard fans that are going to be like, yo, this shit is fire. And then there are those going to be like, yo, this is just another 43 songs of the same shit, Let me know what you think. And I say this, and I've said this now for the past like 3 podcast episodes, but I promise you all, there's been this episode that's been sitting in my drive for a while now, and that's because I've just there's just a lot of shit going on with the work, with outside commitments, with the family, with everything, that I'm like, sometimes I just and I'm gonna be honest with y'all, sometimes I just, on the weekends, just want to sit there and like sit quietly with my own thoughts, because I can get overwhelmed. Nonetheless, that's not an excuse to invalidate the incredible conversation that I had with Matilda Heckler. So I'm cleaning that up, and that will come, because I'm doing an injustice to all the wisdom and all the good shit that she shared to just be keeping it on my fucking drive. Okay? Hey, maybe I'll be like Drake. I'll put out 3 podcast episodes at once. This one, hers, and then some the fuck else. But anyways, as always, I appreciate y'all listening, and I will catch you on the next one.